Recording in progress.
Hi, thanks for joining us today. We have a lot of content to cover today, so we're gonna start. In the last 6 years, we have been providing this plan for people that is supporting us. This series of ECHO developed for the University of New Mexico. It's to give education to virtual small groups. And this is for immigrants to the US, with emphasis in the cultural aspect of this, and it's been presented in Spanish. I don't want to take a long time to talk about this platform ECHO, but I would like to share that the webpage, you can follow our webpage, and there you're gonna find the information that I'm gonna share with you lately. So one of the sessions that always has a lot of questions is about nutrition. Wendy Shelley is here to present us her version of the presentation from the series. And then my other colleague is gonna share a tutorial for how to use our comic book. Next slide, please. Okay, so before starting, we want to share, like, if you need to see the presentation in a language, you need to go to the globe and then pick the language that you want to hear, and you can select either English or Spanish. And same, to select the presentation that you want to see, you have to click in the options, and in view options, you can select the presentation either in Spanish, that is the one that Wendy is going to be sharing, or the English presentation that is going to be presented by Jessica. Everything, it's okay for everyone? Thumbs up. Okay, with that, I'm going to pass to Wendy. Okay, good evening. So this is the first time that I'm going to present this with interpretation. So I'm gonna try to speak as low as I can, so I can help my partners with that incredibly ability to speak two languages. So we're gonna talk about diabetes with emphasis in the nutrition, but like in the comic book, we are also talking about other subjects that are related. So we're gonna talk about like a couple of things. The base part about the science of nutrition and diabetes. To the end of the presentation, our learning objective is like for you to understand the importance of a healthy diet or for the management of diabetes, and for you to be able to recognize the relationship between the food, the drinking, the activity, and the level of sugar in your blood. And also for you to get familiarized with a healthy diet for people with diabetes. It's a pleasure for me to be able to support the ECHO program, because I work on health centers, so I've been working as a clinician, but I see the importance for the people who is promoting health and all the people who is doing outreach, and the importance for us to work together. So those people and you inform us, what is the situation? What are your habits? In which capacity, or how do you make the grocery shopping to be able to cook? And all of that is very important, because if we are talking about recommendation in the health center, and we cannot make the recommendation, and that's not possible, then we're not gonna get anywhere with those recommendations. And also, I would like to share the last scientific information mostly like in this area about nutrition and diabetes, because it's been changing in the last 25 years that I've been working in this area. And when I got my specialization in diabetes, so many things have been changed. Every year there are new things that we have been learning, new tools that we have now in health centers. So that information is very important for people that is working with families, and for them to have like in their job the last and updated information, so we can have all the same good information. We all know that we can just get in the internet and we can find tons of things about diabetes, and of course also about diabetes and nutrition, but half of that is not true. So I think I spend half of my professional life talking about why you shouldn't buy one thing that is recommended on the internet to manage your diabetes. So it's very important for you to be able to distinguish be between all things like they are outdated and the things that now we have scientific evidence, and so many things that we have learned that they are not that recommended and they used to be recommended before. So that's why we want to work together so we can have the best information, uh, like with information with quality for our all well-being. So for our all well-being, I would like to start saying that taking good care of people with diabetes, it also means taking good care of ourselves, our families, and our community, because between all the group that is here right now today with us, maybe some of us have diabetes, right? So we always have to remember that, first of all, we are person, like we are people, right? We're human beings. So I would like to learn not to talk about someone about like with naming their disease, but people who is suffering with that disease, because I am way more than my disease. So not say something like, oh, he's diabetic. No, he's a person with diabetes, because we are persons first. We are human beings before having diabetes. So this is an pandemic. Like, we are so many. And this is something that I like about how these comic books start. And because since the very beginning with the characters, Mr. Gregorio, he hadn't even realized that his partner had also diabetes, and he got surprised because that's where is that idea that you cannot distinguish someone just by seeing them that they have diabetes. No, it's just us. We are the same, so we have to take care of each other and to have a good life. And taking care of our family in preventing diabetes, because we are going to talk today about like eating healthy, but that is not like a diet for people with diabetes. It's just a healthy diet that it will help us to prevent so many things. It will help us to prevent high level of sugar, but also it will help us to prevent cancer and high blood pressure. So this is, we're talking about like rocket science here, that so just is just for some people and we're going to eat different. No, it's something that we can implement for absolutely everyone, for all the community. The more people eat healthy, the less risk it is, the less we're going to lose jobs, with the less disease we're going to get, the less we're going to visit the hospital or the health center. Okay, talking about the sugar in the blood and food. I always start talking about carbohydrates. It's just because carbs, years before, it used to be like a difficult word and it was difficult to understand. But right now, everybody knows what carbs are, because it's like a fashion thing talking about it, low carb diet, and now we have this idea like carbs are the enemy, and the main goal will be to take them away completely from our houses, from our diets. But for real, the relationship between food and the level of sugar in our blood, yes, carbs, they will turn into sugar in our blood, but the sugar is not bad per se. That is energy, that is fuel for our body. So that's necessary, and those are good. But also in people that maybe they have diabetes type 2, if we don't have enough insulin, then we need to keep them moderate and in small portion or not big portions at the time, and very well balanced throughout the whole day. And we can eat carbohydrates, like good carbohydrates and balance in our diet. Some other thing that I also like, and you're gonna see in the comic book, is that the first thing that they mention as the first pictures are not the thing like they have the big cross, like not this other thing, you cannot eat this, you cannot this other thing. No, there are so many meals and good foods that you can eat when you have diabetes. There are some things that we have to be very careful with, like things less healthy, but the most important thing is to know what kind of things can I eat, what is healthy, and fill your plate with the good things, so we don't have any extra room for the kind of not very good things, right? There is so many people with diabetes that they have the glucometer, so they can check their sugar, the level of sugar at their house. But that is something that when we are working with people in our community, this comic book has that information, and they talk about this test A1C for hemoglobin, and is the average measure of the 3 last months of the level of sugar in your blood. So then you have to put your goal and what is your result, and another way that we can work with diabetes in a health center is that if you have that little machine, uh, like make them understand how is that related with the result of A1C and how to improve the way to eat. And sometimes people, they are still like wondering, I am eating good or not, and they have to come back to the clinic to check like, oh yes, I'm still struggling, like these results are not still good, or maybe yes, I'm doing better. And sometimes we prescribe that little machine so they can check their blood sugar, but also because that way they can check at home how they are improving or changing depending on the changes on their alimentation. So what we need to know is when that food is gonna have an impact on the sugar level on the blood. So on that comic book, you can put there your goals and the goal for you, your sugar fasting or after eating 1 or 2 hours of eating. We have just said to mention like, hey, this is this book. Maybe you can talk with your PCP to see like how do you need to eat and to know if the medication is working fine or if you need any medication, and to see if the food and the amount of food that you are getting the nice results. And I forgot to say to please go to the other slide. So I hope you're following. And also, Marta, if you think there are some questions that we can ask during the presentation, that's okay, just let me know. If not, at the end, we're gonna have some room to questions. So in the comic books, we're gonna find some pictures, like beautiful pictures about healthy food from the different groups of foods. So here divided in some different way. So here we're gonna see the method, the plate method. Sometimes I separate them here because I was saying like that was all like the pyramid method. But I would like to keep this just so we can have a little bit more clarity that where the carbs are.
Because a lot of people, when we ask which is the type of food that raises the sugar level, some people say bread, rice, spaghetti, pasta. They mention the carbohydrates that have to do with starch, but we need to remember that also any fruit has natural sugar, carbohydrate, even a grapefruit. It doesn't have to do with a sweet flavor, but it has natural sugar as well as milk. Milk, yogurt also have natural sugar called lactose. This doesn't mean that it's wrong to eat food or that you need to avoid it. But at those that we need to be very aware on how much we eat of it. Has to be moderate. Not all your dish has to be full of these three groups. Because thanks God, we have two more groups. We have the proteins, where we have cheese, although it's made out of milk. When cheese is made, serum is the one that has the carbohydrates and it's dropped away. So cheese is not enough to be considered as carbohydrate. Eggs, somebody said this was a piece of bacon, but it is an egg. Poultry, fish, seafood, seeds, nuts. All of this is more of a protein, although it can have a few grams of carbohydrates, but in general, they are not considered as the rest. They do not turn into sugar in blood. So this is a very useful group that can help us feel filled, satisfied with food if we normally have rice and beans on our plate and 4 tortillas and maybe a little bit of beef. When we drop a little bit of rice and the tortillas and the beans, what is it that I'm going to be filled with? So we can see that you can eat 2 lean fish fillets or chicken or poultry. We have proteins also in carbohydrates, such as lentils, beans. These are also very good proteins, but they have a combination of proteins. It doesn't have to be from animals. Also, seeds are very good. But all this, we need to also check on the portions that we eat, the amount. And my big smile here, because the group that I like a lot, because I like to eat and I like to eat a lot. I don't like to eat very little. So the good thing is that this group of vegetables that do not have a high content of carbohydrates or starch can be eaten with no limit. And here we have some pictures here in the comic book. We have also nice pictures, but we cannot include the hundreds of options that we have. So I'm always saying these are groups that when I speak of nutrition, they tell me, I don't like broccoli. I don't like this or that. It's okay. That's your right. Maybe 20 you don't like, as long as you can find another 10 or 20 that you do like. And you need to include those that you like on your plate, in my opinion, professional and personal, in order to prevent diabetes and live well with diabetes. You do not eat things that you don't like. You don't need to eat things that doesn't taste good, but you have to find ways of making the healthy food of your taste. Like my husband, he doesn't like broccoli, but if I fry it with a little bit of olive oil, a lot of onion and garlic, he likes it. Or spinach, very thinly sliced, can be part of the spaghetti sauce or on top of a pizza. Little green pieces can be hidden everywhere and they don't even notice they are there. So nutrition is covered there in the different dishes. Now, when I speak about so many things that you can eat that are good, this is very important to know. In our today cultures, not only here, but in many, many countries worldwide, we need to speak about drinks or beverages. Now, the sweet ones, or the energizing ones that have a lot of chemicals and other things and a lot of sugar. When it's a carbohydrate, these are some examples. Here we have other examples that are named however they want, like vitamin water. It doesn't matter the name they give. If it's a vitamin water, but it has 8 teaspoons of sugar, it's not a good option. So they always want to deceive us to sell their products that maybe are producing this horrible nutrition, or they convince us that Gatorade, if you are going to go out to walk, you need a Gatorade because you're working out. It's not true, because it has a lot of salt and sugar. So the best is always to be very careful with what we drink. It's better to drink water. That actually is very well remarked in the comic book. If you need caffeine, drink a coffee with milk, a tea, a green tea, a black tea, or a natural tea. If you only want something that is not just plain water, maybe ginger, mint teas have a good taste, maybe water with a little bit of lime or lemon, or with some pieces of cucumber and lime, also very nice flavor. Now, these drinks, liquids, actually get in the blood so fast that the effect is not as food, that when you have carbohydrate in a solid way, 1 or 2 hours after, you actually digest it, and then the level of sugar goes up. When it is a sweet drink, in 5 or 10 minutes, and then you get the sugar in the blood. It is like an IV serum, but of sugar. That's why we use it when we have people who use insulin, or for whatever reasons, they are low in sugar. We give them a little juice or something to raise it. But for us, that's not the goal. So it is the idea to avoid the liquid. It is difficult for a lot of people. We have a lot of patients saying, I cannot drink water. Some of them even say they get nauseous. They just can't. So, well, it's okay then. We need to be, or do what is possible, not ideal. So now we have a few things that are used with artificial sweeteners that are approved by FDA. Not very nutritious, but not as harmful as internet says. So if you're gonna have some juice, total of carbohydrate is 5 grams or less. And once in a while, maybe in a party, something special, where you don't want to have water. In the comic guide, it is mentioned that we need to avoid sugar, sweet drinks as diet drinks, because this is not a base of a healthy diet. But if it's somebody that is not going to have only plain water, or in some places that you don't have drinking water and you have to need from a bottle, well, these are some options. And as some people say in the internet, is not better to drink the regular one than diet one. That is not true. None of them are recommended. But if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, or in your family there's diabetes, it's better to drink something with less carbohydrates and sugars like this. Now, let's pick up the pyramid and the plate so that we can understand where carbohydrates are. And from there, you will see in the comic guide that you see the picture of the plate, and half of it, the goal is to have vegetables that will not raise your sugar level, such as carrots, peas, and maybe the 1/4 of it can be carbohydrate, can be tortillas, can be beans, or potato, mashed potato, or a little bit of meat can be poultry, or maybe salad, or maybe rice in the fourth piece, which is the grains and protein. The thing is, in every culture, we need to see that instead of 3/4 of our plate full of carbohydrates, we need to drop that. We need to reduce that. So maybe people that eat Italian way to drop spaghetti and not include bread, Italian bread with it. And so for the people of Mexico, if you're going to have rice and beans, maybe 1 or 2 tortillas, or to decide, okay, I'll eat my rice and my beans with a spoon, and in another meal, my 3 tortillas. So the same as we do with our money, priorities. What is it that I want the most in this meal? If I'm going to spend my carbohydrates in rice and beans, then I don't have any left for beans, or I don't have any left for fruit at that same moment. In the book, in the comic book, we see that fruits are on top, aside, and we don't see it here in my images of the plate. This is not because we are not recommending to have fruit. Fruit is really good. Normally, it's better for people to eat fruit as a snack, like in between their meals, because we all want a little bit of carbohydrates with meals, or tortillas, or mashed potatoes, or spaghetti. So if we include fruit with our meal, we need to drop even more carbohydrates from our plate. But if we eat it in between and wait for a couple of hours, we can have some fruit, because we have digested all the starch or the carbohydrates of the main dish, and we can eat a little bit of fruit and get a balance. Some people were asking me, I heard that we have to have 5 small meals along the day. It's not true that you have to, but if you want a little bit more, or if you want to have some fruit, it's a healthy way of doing it. It's way healthier to eat 4 times small portions instead of 2 big meals. And especially one huge one at the end of the day, when we have finished working, maybe in the field, we have done a lot of workout after eating. In the afternoon, we won't go out to jog or to walk because we're tired. But to get home and eat a lot is when sugar raises a lot and keeps high all night, because either we sit down to watch TV or we just fall asleep. As we buy here many things that are packaged, we wish everything was fresh from the market, but it's not like this here. So many times people ask me, how can I know if it's okay or not? So we have a lot of information that is kind of complicated in the nutrition facts, but for diabetes, we recommend to check only the size of the portion and the total of carbohydrates. This about fiber and sugars is not as important, the total of carbohydrates, because every carbohydrate turns into sugar in blood. And in general, somebody can eat 30 to 45 grams in each meal, or 15 in a snack. So this example, for example, that would be like a snack, like some crackers. If the size of the portion is about 42 of them, and it has 21 grams total carbohydrates, it's kind of a lot for a snack. So if you drop it to 30, then it's about 15 grams. So this is an idea of how people can actually say, oh, maybe it's when you buy a frozen pizza and then you realize that it has 90 grams carbohydrates. So you can say, well, I guess this will raise my sugar levels a lot, like 2 or 3 pieces, because it's a lot of carbohydrates, so that you have a little bit of an idea of the grams and the portions.
The part of the nutrition facts with the percentage, normally I wouldn't recommend to check that, because I don't find it very helpful. And this in the comic book, they said with a tortilla, we can eat 3. So 1 tortilla will say 10 grams. It will depend on how thick it is, but 3 tortillas will be perfectly on that range. The problem is when we have a cup full of rice, plus beans, plus 4 or 5 tortillas, then it's going to be a lot of carbs in the same meal. To talk a little bit about, I would like to talk some beliefs that people could have about diet or about the way that you are eating for diabetes that maybe are not that true. For example, people say they have to buy special food, and no. If you drink coffee in the morning, maybe a coffee with milk, and you're not gonna put on 5 spoons of sugar, you cannot even have artificial sugar for that. You can use a 1 little spoon. The problem is when it's 7, 8 spoons of sugar, maybe in that case you can find other options for artificial sugar. And also people will think they cannot eat sweet things. My dad, he has been diabetic for a long time, and he doesn't like it. Everybody is always calling him out and telling him oh, you cannot eat this, you cannot eat that. Yes, we can eat something. For example, in a birthday party, a tiny bit of a piece of cake. If we don't combine that with tons of other carbohydrates, but if we can dance instead later in the party, so it's not something by itself or alone we need to avoid. But the drinks with plenty of sugar, yes. Teas, the Kolsch tea from the bottle, it has 18 spoons of sugar. It's a lot. Also, even some doctors where I work, they will say okay, you cannot eat white food. You just can have brown bread, the wheat bread. Yes, it is a little bit more healthy. It's healthier, but that doesn't mean you can eat 8 slices of bread. It's not the wheat doesn't has any relationship with the sugar. It's the same with the wheat, even if it's boiled, or the oat, it's also carbohydrates. So you have to check always the amount and the portion. And sometimes, for example, the carrots, they're a little sweet, and they say they have a lot of sugar. No, it is not true. I have never seen someone with high level of sugar just by eating carrots. That's yes, the group of they don't have the sugar for the vegetables. For example, the cherry tomatoes. Yes, they are a little sweet, but that doesn't mean they are gonna increase your level of sugar. Those vegetables that are a little sweet, that doesn't mean they're gonna higher your level of sugar in your blood. Still talking about the sweet things, I think watermelon season is coming very soon, and they will say people with diabetes, they cannot eat watermelon or grapes or bananas. That's not true. It's always related with the portion. If you eat whatever, it will fill a quarter of a plate, that's okay. The same with grapes. If you can just fill one hand with grapes, that's the right amount. Same with watermelon. You're not gonna eat a half of watermelon, right? It's just one portion. We still have 2 or 3 more minutes. If you think like there are common beliefs out there and you want to share it, I think, like, Marta, what do you think? We can have like 2 or 3 little minutes. Yes. If you have a common belief, please put it in the chat. In the meantime, we have one question here in the chat. Like, what happened with the alcoholic drinks like beer? Okay, in the book, in the comic book, we will mention alcoholic beverages like something to avoid. And sincerely, that will be also for the doctors, because alcohol doesn't increase the level of sugar in the blood. So there is not a good reason for us to say like someone with diabetes cannot have a beer. Like even the beer will be less bad for your health than a Coke. But if some people have like bad liver and the sugar is processing in the liver, there could be some other reasons. So the answer will be that the alcohol itself, it doesn't increase the level of sugar in your blood, but that doesn't mean either that we can say, no, yes, you can have as much alcoholic beverages as you want, because that's not even true. You need to talk with your provider to see in which amount it's enough, it's good enough. Okay, we have another question. We say like, what happened with the drinks that we made at home, like smoothies or fruit juice made the fruit at home? Can we, do we have to avoid them or not? So we'll say like, if there are like 8 strawberries kind of smashed, or pineapple in water, like chopped pineapple in water, but that's okay, you can have that. But if you add to that like 8 spoons of sugar, of course, I'm not healthy. Fruit, it gets better processed in your body if you had it like the whole fruit, like with the fiber. That's why people use like smoothies, but like the extractors, that they will take out the fiber from the fruit, they will give you just the sugar from the fruit. Like for example, like if you use the fruit to give some sort of flavor to the water, like flavored water, that's fine, that's one thing. But it's totally different if you use the whole fruit and then you add to that like 6-7 spoons of sugar. That's totally different. And you can have, you can make the proof yourself. If you have the glucometer, you can test it in your own body. Okay, I think we have time for one more question here. Let's see. I had it here. Okay, what do you think about the fasting, intermittent fasting for people with diabetes? Yes, that's a great question, and I have received that question very often. For people with pre-diabetes or diabetes type 2, that is just a tiny bit, sometimes it could be helpful. Sometimes the reason why it's helpful is because if we limited the hours while we are eating, and that means like maybe you are not eating after 7 p.m., then it's not exactly because eating in the evening is bad, but it's mostly because after 7, what are we eating? It's not like cucumbers, no, it's usually just junk food. So scientific studies, they don't say for sure that people can sustain this intermediate fasting for a long time. So yes, if you do that, maybe sometimes you can lose weight, and sometimes you can improve your diabetes, and it could even disappear or get into remission. So yes, intermittent fasting will help for lose some weight, yes, but what I have seen as a problem in people is like if they have like a very, very long time without eating or fasting, then they start making bad decisions because they are so hungry. Then when they finally get to eat, they will eat way too much, and they force the pancreas way too much because that's the organ that produces the insulin. Because we need glucose and we need sugar in our brain during the whole day. So if we are not eating anything for so many hours, the liver is still producing sugar. So the system doesn't work very good years if we prolongate this for years and years and years. Thank you, Wendy. Good. Okay. Maybe so we can leave enough time at the end. I just want to talk a tiny bit about this last slide that is very important, and is the role of physical activity in the management of diabetes. The physical activity, if it would be like a pill, it will cost $1,000 because it's so good for so many things. It will literally remove sugar from the blood. It also will make your body more sensitive to their own insulin. So it helps for the body's insulin to work better. It also burns calories and it will help with our weight loss. In the comic book, it mentioned like a very a good moment for us to do physical activity is like 1 or 2 hours after eating, because that's when all the sugar from the food that we eaten before, it's getting into sugar. So for example, people who live in an apartment, they just eat the food from the evening. If they wait like half an hour after eating, and maybe they can just go up and down the stairs 5 times, they can see that their sugar can go down even 30 points just by doing a tiny bit of physical activity. So that's why I was saying earlier, if you go to a birthday party and you're gonna get yourself a little treat, and you eat a little piece of cake, then after that, you will start like dancing or walking around so you can burn those extra calories that you just got. Thank you, Wendy. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so Alma can share. And then we are here now to Alma, so she can tell us a little bit more about how to use the comic book to help our community. I was muted, sorry. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can hear you, Alma. And can you see my screen also? Yes, okay. Just a little reminder, if you want to see the presentation in Spanish or English, you just have to pick your option. Okay, well, thank you. Let me see here real quick one thing. Okay, well, my name is Alma Galvan. I am part of MCN, and Wendy, it's a pleasure to listen to you, listening to your fabulous way to talk about this, like in a very easy, nice, chill way, very familiar, very easy to understand. So as Marta was saying, I'm gonna walk you through a little tutorial about how we use this little comic book that we have been talking about. It's called My Health is My Treasure. We made this in the 2020, 3 years ago, approx. It was a group of all of us. We were participating. It's based in popular education. It's made for immigrants who live with diabetes, and it's like as a tool for workers that go out and work like as a farmer and work with that.
And before I get started and show it to you, I would like to tell you that a lot of the approach this was created with is because we thought people need to make their own decisions having to do on how they handle their lives, their health conditions and everything. Therefore, they need information, they need access to resources, and know they can make a decision. So this is how we developed the comic. So here, as Wendy was saying, you see this story between Goyo and Chela. Both work in the fields, and when they are talking to each other, they realize both of them have diabetes. Chela, who has a lot of experience and for us is somehow a health promoter of her community, speaks to him about 6 very important things: food, physical activity, resting, feelings, checkups, and self-managing. So they start talking to each other. And the first thing is not to tell him what to do, but to show to him the kind of food they can use. And here we have the dish, the plate, so that the person decides what to place on the plate depending on his conditions and what he wants. Then our comic speaks about a possible diet, and thus now is in fashion to use plant-based food. We included some ideas having to do with the plants. Then Chela explains to him about all this food that you don't have to eat. And she explains a little bit about labels, about what to look for in the tags, in the labels. And once she explains everything about food, she starts speaking about physical activities. She explains how he should work out. And he says, but sometimes you cannot work out. And she says, well, exercise provides you with a lot of benefits, and you need to do it inside of your house, outside of your house, with whatever you can. Even water gallons, if you want to do things. And so they start talking about it. And they look at their feet, he's tired and he has diabetes. So she takes advantage of it and speaks to him about taking care of his feet. That is so important for these people with diabetes. And also tells him about all the elements you need to cover to have the right hygiene. And especially, she speaks about having control. But Goyo is a migrant. Remember, he is a migrant. And so he realizes for him it's difficult due to the situation that he undergoes, and he has emotional problems. So they start speaking about it, about emotional situations. And then Chela tells him a little bit about what she does, how she gets vaccinated, looks for support, and all these things that can be useful to Goyo so that he knows what he can do. After all this conversation, Goyo and Chela are chatting, and they say, oh my God, we're gonna be fired. But Chela tells him that he has to take care of emotions, especially as you're alone and far from the family. There are always things you can do. And the most important being to realize, to be aware and decide. And well, we finish with a page so that the health promoter, Chela, sets some goals if the person decides to, having to do with doing some exams, medication, workout, food, and weight control. Why did we choose these 5 things? Well, because these are the 5 things that are the most difficult for those who have diabetes. So, well, this is the book. And as you can see, you will be getting it in a PowerPoint as well as, whenever available, is printed. We will send it to you if you request it. We don't have it right now printed, and we ran out of all the printed ones, but we are in this moment when we are in the reprinting. And well, this is the comic. This is what you can use to talk to people about diabetes. Now, the question, and we want this to be very participative, how can you, from your perspective, use this book to help people understand the basic concepts on diabetes? I would like to have some participation, 2 or 3 answers on the chat. I see that you're participating a lot. Yes, Claudia, it is in Spanish and English, and you will get it in a PDF and PowerPoint, so you can do your presentation. Okay, so tell me, how can you use it? How can you use this comic book to help people understand the basic concepts? Someone wrote, Elmer, in workshops and reading circles. Yes, and community groups to illustrate information in a visual way, to do it one-on-one. Perfect, you're right. Can we use it to speak about what glucose and blood is, to self-care of mental health? Not like a big presentation, but key points, that kind of food, take care of your feet, weight control, hygiene, oral hygiene. We can choose some pieces of it. We don't have to use it complete. It can be adapted to what you're working on. Thank you. Now, another question. How can you use it to help in monitoring and control of diabetes? Can you tell me? We changed the question. Ruth says, using it to let them know about the importance of doing the periodic glycemic index controls. Yes. Daniela says we work closely with agriculture workers here at True Care. And we provide it in the fairs by using the survey at the end of the book. Remember, it's not a survey. It is just one piece of paper at the end of the booklet to set your goals and establish a control plan and monitoring control, like to self-handle it, self-manage it, to work with the patient and eat healthy, right? Completely right. So the book can be used, as I said, again, to control and monitor your food intake, your hygiene, your feet care, glucose, and weight control, amongst many other things, as well as emotional health. This is very important. And let's go with the last question. How and when can I use this booklet in my work? When and how? Somebody said in a work fair, they will hand it. Any other way? Information tables, yes. How else? Workshops during education on diabetes, visits one-on-one, homework. We can give it to be read and then discuss it or see if they have doubts or questions about what is in writing there, or ask them to create their own plate. So when you come back, they can show it to you as general information. Games of chalupa. I don't know what chalupa games are. David, if you would like to explain a little more. Mobile campaigns, education activities, individual and group types, parents and representatives. Good. Well, you're right. During visits, in the health fairs, one-on-one, homework, virtual presentations. That's why you will get it in a PowerPoint. So that if you have a presentation like this one, you can go ahead and do it. Did you see how Wendy was able to relate it with what she was speaking? And she was saying on this page, on that page. Well, she didn't mention the page back. She was saying, okay, here you will find these pictures. And this is what you can do. You can hand it out, provide a presentation and discuss them. You can have discussion groups. It can be a story for children. It can be something that the whole family can enjoy. And this is very important. Diabetes must be treated as community, as family. Not only the person who lives with diabetes, but the whole group, that family, as Wendy was saying. You don't cook for one person, you cook for the whole family. So that is the approach that we promote. And well, I was going to write one last question. Where do you think you can use it? But then I said, no, I won't, because besides time limits, you can put it in the health centers. And the only idea that I wanted to share is that also in the restrooms. Why? Because people sometimes like to read. It's not very hygienic, but it can work. Because they can see or read while they are doing their business, Examination rooms, gyms, you're right. Perfect. Also in the laundry business, where you go to do your laundry, where you go to cut your hair. Yes, where you get people gathering. So this is the experience in these kind of books, comics that actually support the great job that you're doing as health promoters. Marta, I don't know if there's a question or should I give the floor? I give you the floor. I know there are many comments. I don't know if there's questions. Yes, we have a lot of comments. Everybody wants a copy of the book. As we do not have the printed ones, I will be sending you the PowerPoint of the comic. So you will all receive it in English and Spanish. Perfect. And well, thank you so much for your comments or your questions. I know we only have 1 more minute. So, yes. If you can actually please fill out your evaluations, your comments are very important for us. And as I was saying, later today, you will be receiving a follow-up email that will be arriving from me with access to the recorded English and Spanish, links to Wendy's presentation on PDF and the PowerPoints with the comics and other resources also. Thank you, Marta. One last thing, just to tell you that the comic can be downloaded from MCN site, and you can actually reproduce it in your health center. If you want, you can add up your logo, reproduce it, as long as you give the credit to the source, which is MCN. This is what we're after, to improve the index of people with diabetes. Thank you. Thank you, Alma. This is an awesome resource we're provided with. I was just checking a little after because I couldn't do it while I was presenting some of the questions. And as usual, we have a lot of details and questions about certain things on nutrition and diabetes. I would love to have a way of answering everything. First, I would like to tell you, if you have not participated in the ECHO trainings provided by Marta and Lois, they're extremely great because you have a longer time to delve into it. Today, I had to do the short version to keep track of time, but you will not be able to have everything there. So be very welcome. Send any messages to Marta and share my email is perfect. Marta, if they have questions, there is a lot of information. I had to study my specialty on diabetes for 5 years, so I won't be able to answer every single detail, but I will try. Thank you.